What's up everybody, I'm Adam, you're watching Model Aviator, and this week we have a new announcement from Horizon Hobby, the UltraStick 1.1 meter. We're going to tell you what this thing's all about, give you all the details, and review it for you. Let's get after it. In 2005, E-Flite introduced an ARF called the Mini UltraStick. A year later, they would introduce a plug-and-play version of that same airplane that had the electronics installed, bolted together easily, and could be ready to fly faster than any Balsa plane that had ever come before it. The plug-and-play version was available until 2011, and the ARF version was available until 2018, at which time, unfortunately, the factory that built it went out of business. Now, since then, turns out pilots really miss the Mini UltraStick, and that is what inspired the UltraStick 1.1. Now, this is a much improved airframe. It is a bit bigger. You can use 2200 to 3200 3 and 4S packs. They beefed up the landing gear mounting area, added a steerable tail wheel, and thickened and stiffened the tail feathers. Those are some things that people said they would like to see on the Mini UltraStick. So there you go. Now this airplane is going to be available in two versions. One is going to be an ARF version for $169.99. That's going to be the airframe and the hardware. You will have to provide and install the electronics. You can of course choose to buy your electronics from Horizon Hobby. They're going to recommend some for it, but if you choose to go another route, you can certainly do that as well. Then there will be a bind and fly version, which is what we have here, for $329.99, and that's exactly what we're accustomed to with a bind and fly. Very quick and easy assembly, and everything is included. Now, when it comes to the bind and fly version, it didn't just get an airframe update. Got some pretty cool electronics as well. It has a Spectrum AR631 6-channel safe AS3X telemetry receiver, an Avian 45 amp Smart Light ESC, a Spectrum 3534 1000 kV motor, 4 Spectrum A332 9-gram Metal Gear servos, has a wingspan of 43.3 inches, a length of 39.1 inches, and our example weighs 2 pounds 7.35 ounces, ready to fly with a Spectrum Smart 4S 2250C battery. If you're using a compatible Spectrum transmitter and smart battery pack, you can get an array of telemetry, including flight log, your minimum and maximum receiver pack voltage, your minimum and maximum ESC information, on-the-fly ESC status, your smart battery information, and my personal favorite, a G-meter. So the 1.1 UltraStick has a very versatile wing. You can do a number of things with this. It has ailerons and flaps, and each aileron and flap is individually hinged, and there's 4 slots for 4 servos, 1 per control surface if you want to go that route. Now, out of the box, each flap and aileron are actually attached to each other via 2 dowels that you can cut if you choose to. So your bind and fly basic version is going to come with full span ailerons out of the box, and the way they make that happen, they actually put the servos in the flap positions but plug the Y harness from the servos into the aileron slot of the AR631, and that's how you get your full span ailerons. If you decide you want to go with independent ailerons and flaps, you simply cut those dowels flush with each control surface to free them up and make them independent. You'll need 2 extra servos and a push rod kit that has all the hardware and the control horns for this airplane to make that happen. Then you simply use Y harnesses for flaps and ailerons, set your transmitter to 1 aileron, 1 flap, and you're good to go. AS3X and safe work normally. If you decide that you want to go with flaperons, you do have that capability with the bind and fly AR631, however not with the stock programming. You'll need a PC and this Spectrum programming cable. What you'll have to do is reset the receiver. Then you go into your transmitter and set your wing configuration to 2 aileron and 1 flap. And then when you go into forward programming and reprogram the AS3X, it's actually going to learn your new programmed wing configuration in your transmitter so that AS3X and safe work on independent aileron channels. Then you can do flaperons and everything will work fine with your bind and fly basic receiver. If you decide that you want to go the route of 1 servo per per slot in the receiver so that you can do all kinds of crazy mixes, crow and reflex and stuff like that, and be able to switch between the two. You're going to have to go up to a 7-channel or better receiver to be able to do that. For our review, we're actually going to just fly it stock because that's probably what most people are going to do. Just have the full span aileron, so we'll see what it's got in that configuration. There'll be a set of accessory wheel pants available for the UltraStick 1.1, so if you want to make it look like its larger cousins, you can absolutely do that. Now some may ask, why balsa? Why not foam? So many things this size are made of foam. Well, other than having some versatility in your hanger always being a good thing, balsa has a couple of advantages over foam. The first is when you have a covered balsa airframe like this, it's going to be a lot stiffer than an EPO plane, which means that it's going to be more precise in certain maneuvers than a foam plane would be. Also, these things are way more resistant to hanger rash than a foam plane, and that's always a good thing. Now obviously, when you're thinking balsa, you have to think, well, what if I have to repair this thing? The UltraStick 1.1 will be supported with a full line of airframe parts, so if you have a bad crash, you can just replace whatever part that you tear up. If you have a small incident and you'd like to do a repair, there's going to be a set of repair covering swatches available that will make that easy for you. Now when it comes to the manual, obviously it covers the assembly of the bind and fly, but it also covers the installation of components for the ARF. Something to note is the components suggested are bolt-on. If you go with aftermarket components, there may be some fitting required. Not every 9-gram servo's dimensions are the same. Not every motor's X-mount bolt pattern is the same. So just be prepared for that if you go with aftermarket parts. Speaking of the manual, let's show you how easy this thing is to build. The build is actually really an assembly, and it's not unlike the assembly of a lot of foam planes. It's very simple. Horizon says less than an hour. It's actually a lot less than that. It took us 20 minutes, and that includes programming our transmitter. They're going to start you with the vertical. You're going to slide that down into the slot on the top of the fuselage. You'll put the 2 bolts attached to the vertical through. When you turn the fuselage over, you'll see those bolts exposed. Then you'll bring your horizontal down on top of those bolts, swing your aluminum bracket around and on top of the bolts. Then you'll use washers and lock nuts to tighten that down, and you want to be sure that you move the wheel collar on the tail wheel wire down flush with the aluminum bracket. Then you're going to go to the main gear, and that's a very simple 4-bolt affair, and there's pretty much no way to mess that up. Then you're going to go to the main wing. You're going to have 2 connections from a Y harness in the fuselage. You'll pull those out, plug in the 2 connections from the wing, and then the front of the wing has a single dowel protruding out from the front of the wing, and you've got a hole to accept that dowel in the front of the wing cradle. You put that dowel in, lower the rear of the wing down, and tighten the wing down with a single nylon wing bolt. Next, you have to install your prop adapter onto the front of the motor. It's a pretty simple affair. You want to make sure that you use Loctite. You just bolt it up there. It only goes one way. You are dealing with an aluminum piece, so be sure that you only snug up those bolts. Don't over tighten them. Then you're going to move to the spinner. You'll install the spinner backplate first, install your propeller, then bring the front of the spinner up and screw it on with the 2 screws provided. With the assembly complete, it's time to talk setup. And it's actually pretty simple in the stock full span aileron configuration. The manual's a great place to start. We deviated from that a bit. We'll show you our full setup page next before the flight footage so you can see exactly what we did. When it comes to the flight footage, there'll be a graphic in the top left-hand corner letting you know what battery is being used at the time. We flew it on 3 and 4S. Now, Horizon builds this airplane as a great everyday sport plane. They say it has a wide speed envelope and excellent handling characteristics at both slow and fast speeds, and that it has excellent aerobatic capabilities as far as the basic regime is concerned, and it's even capable of some mild 3D. We, of course, tested all that, and you're going to see it next. After that, we'll meet you back here, and we'll give you our final thoughts. Enjoy the flying. The field we flew off of on this day was pretty rough. The 1.1 Ultrastick has some decent sized main wheels, and they perform fine off of it. It's very stable at slow speed. The power on 3 cell is pretty impressive. There's enough there to do pretty much any kind of sport aerobatics you'd want to do. With the fully symmetrical airfoil, it's as comfortable inverted as it is right side up. Ultra sticks are a lot of fun to fly, and whether you choose to be docile or aggressive, they're pretty much up for whatever. The flight times we got were very similar on 3 and 4S. On the 2200s, flying the way you're seeing us fly, we got 7 to 8 minutes. On the 3200s, we got as much as 10 to 12. It didn't seem to really matter what battery pack we used. The slow speed performance was respectable with pretty much everything. As you can see here, when you're on 4-cell and you press that throttle forward, it's a different animal. Now right here I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to see if I can force it into an accelerated stall. Now right here I pulled as hard as I could, and it didn't bite me anywhere near as much as I thought it would. Of course, the spin was intentional. Pretty well behaved airframe, I'd say. The little ultra stick responds well to aggression. I like that. This airplane took me back a bit further for me than the Mini Ultra Stick. My second airplane ever was a Midwest Ugly Stick, old nitro-powered plane. Learned a lot about aerobatics and unfortunately repairing balsa planes with that one. I will say, experiencing the Ultra Stick 1.1 kind of solidifies to me how far we've come. It is definitely an improvement over the Mini Ultra Stick. It's an improvement over a lot of things. It's just really a good all-around sport plane. And sticks are like that. They're different than anything that you're ever going to fly. Anybody that's experienced and owned any kind of Ultra Stick, Ugly Stick, anything like that, they'll tell you they just aren't experienced in and of themselves. And if you haven't experienced that and you like sport planes, you definitely want to. Now when it comes to the things that Horizon promised, they promised great handling characteristics at both slow and high speed. And it absolutely delivers, and it's worth pointing out, with the myriad of batteries available for this, from 2200 3-cell to 3200 4-cell, and anything in between within those cell counts, this airplane flies well. We flew it on everything that you see here, including some 4S 2700s. I will say, when you get up to the 3200 4S, it takes a little bit of patience to get in that battery bay. It absolutely fits. You just takes a little bit more effort than the other things. And I will say that obviously with the lightest of the packs, it's going to slow down a little bit better and feel a little lighter, a little more nimble than it does on the heaviest of 4-cell packs. But it isn't a huge difference. The airplane flies well on everything. It slows down well on everything, although Obviously it's going to go slower on the lightest pack. It's got plenty of power on 3-cell to do anything that you want to do to have fun. And then if you want crazy, ridiculous vertical, that's when you pop the 4-cell in, and this thing is just absolutely stupid. It has an incredible speed envelope from going really slow to really hauling. I was very impressed. When it comes to the aerobatic performance, as Horizon promised, it does all of the sport aerobatics that you could ever think of doing, and it does them with a lot of precision. It is capable of some mild 3D. I mean, you saw us hover it and tumble it. It will do some interesting things beyond the scope of sport plane. Now, one of the things that Horizon says about this airplane is that it is the perfect first wood airplane, and I absolutely agree with that. I've experienced a lot of different balsa planes, from kits to the modern day plug and plays, and I can tell you that the bind to fly version of this is easier to get out of the box and into the air than any balsa plane I've ever experienced. I can't imagine there's anything out there any easier than this, and that says a lot. A lot of folks that fly foamies today avoid the balsa planes because they take a bit more effort to get in the air. Well, there's nothing to be afraid of with this one. This is as easy to get flying as any foamy you've ever assembled. So I definitely like that. I think it'll get a lot of people to try balsa planes, and it's absolutely perfect for that. Now, when it comes to skill level, clearly it's not a trainer. You need to be past a trainer, but if you are and you turn the throws down on this airplane, you should have no trouble handling it. And even though it's a tail dragger, it'd make a great first tail dragger as well, because sticks have a long tail moment and a lot of rudder authority. As tail draggers go, they handle pretty easy. So be a good airplane for that. And of course, you can morph your skill set because of this wing with time. And the cool thing is, you can have your first experience with an airplane with flaps with this, then you can move into doing the elaborate mixes if you want to and learn how to do that. And the whole time, you're going to have a blast because sticks are just fun. And the Ultra Sticks, they are the ultimate version of a stick. So there you go. So that said, if you decide you'd like to put one of these in your hangar, we have a link in the description. If you would use that, that helps our channel out, and we greatly appreciate that. So if you do, thank you ahead of time. Hope this was helpful. We appreciate you watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings. Take care.